So we've got a few interesting Vancouver Canucks goaltending notes to dive into on this day. Now, the Canucks do play a game later tonight against the Calgary Flames. It's going to be in Abbotsford. I have some buddies that are going to the game. I'm not wanting to make the drive out there, unfortunately, but I, of course, will be trying my best to find a way to watch it. And the reason I say it like that is because today's game, currently, at the time of recording this audio, I can't seem to find any details as to how it's going to be accessible to view. Whether or not this game will be on Sportsnet Pacific or Sportsnet 1 or whatever, it doesn't really seem like that's guaranteed at this point. If it's just going to be on Canucks.com or whatever, then okay, we'll roll with it once the game begins. But all in all, the Canucks are playing off against the Calgary Flames in Abbotsford, and we'll be back with the post-game programming as usual. But in this video, what I wanted to do was talk about some of the goaltending notes, because we have ourselves the reason, perhaps, as to why Kevin Lankinen signed with the Canucks, some extra trivia to go along with this fact, as well as some of the other Vancouver Canucks goalies that had suited up in training camp and where they have gone since. Actually, you know what? Let's start out with that. Let's talk about the guys that are no longer a part of the organization. In particular, we are talking about Dylan Ferguson, whom we had talked about just a few days ago as a Vancouver Canucks PTO signee. This wasn't really that big of a deal, but we did kind of say that it was noteworthy because the Canucks were looking for goaltending support. They had Thatcher Demko taken out for a while because of the injury to his knee. Artur Shilovs was kind of buzzing with some sort of inflammation. He's okay now, thank goodness. But the Canucks were still looking for a goaltender, and that's where they signed Dylan Ferguson to a PTO. He was coming over from the KHL. He suited up in Canucks training camp, and shortly after training camp concluded, the Vancouver Canucks let Ferguson go. They didn't sign him to any regular contract for the NHL or the AHL team because the signing of Kevin Lankinen came just a few days before training camp concluded. So unfortunately for Ferguson, he could not stick around with a Vancouver Canucks team that was projected to being pretty good, but he did get himself a contract just a few days later. Take a look at this. It was tweeted out by the Iowa Wild. Iowa GM Matt Hendricks announced today that the American Hockey League club has signed goaltender Dylan Ferguson to a one-year, one-way AHL contract. So, hey, he's back in North America. Great. Other than that, though, we did have ourselves some news with Kevin Lankinen, the guy that was brought in to pretty much replace Ferguson. I don't think it's 100% accurate, but it's still kind of fitting with the narrative. Here's a comment made by Lankinen in regards to whom the Vancouver Canucks have in their organization. He spoke on Canucks Talk on Sportsnet 650 that he thinks very highly of Marco Torenius, that he's the right guy to help Lankinen take another step in his game. He spoke very highly of Torenius, whom he has worked with in Finland over the last few off-seasons. With this in mind, it kind of seems like Kevin Lankinen signed with the Vancouver Canucks due to being able to work with Torenius a little bit further. We had spoken about Torenius on and off over the past few weeks, but he is the new goaltending coach after Ian Clark took on a different role with the team. And with Torenius having connections to teams like SKA St. Petersburg, working with goaltenders like Yaroslav Askarov, for example, he does have a pretty good resume for guys that have had success at the NHL and AHL levels. Now, for Kevin Lankinen, this guy working with Marco Torenius throughout the off-seasons actually does serve as a pretty good story. Because as we've talked about, Lankinen has had a pretty good NHL career thus far. Aside from the down seasons he had with the Chicago Blackhawks, that 8-9-1 is a pretty big stain. You have to acknowledge, though, that the Blackhawks kind of stunk in that season. He still had a .909 save percentage with Chicago in 2020-2021, and a .916 save percentage with the Predators in 2022-2023. It's what allowed him to get a $2 million AAV contract in the first place, wherein he put up a .908 save percentage in the process. Lankinen has had some pretty good results going from season to season, and if Marco Torenius is the guy in the offseason who is helping him get those results, it allows you to connect the dots as to why he chose Vancouver. I think it's that, and also maybe a combination of the other teams in the NHL not really looking to Lankinen as an option to sign. There also was the money issue, because Lankinen was making $2 million last year. It was reasonable for him to want something in that same range, or maybe kind of get something in the $1.5 million range. The Vancouver Canucks had no ability to offer him anything more than that, hence the $875,000 deal. With this, it kind of makes me think that from the beginning, Kevin Lankinen was interested in signing in Vancouver, but because he wanted to hold out for the money, he ended up waiting a little bit. And eventually, Alvin was like, look, we really need you, but we can't go over this dollar amount. And then he was like, screw it, I'll just sign, I'll play with Torenius, I'll work under him, I'll get better under him, and I'll join your team because you guys want me and I want to play for you too. We had talked about this the other day, but the amount of goaltenders that were available options on the free agent market was very slim. And with Antti Raanta deciding to go over to Europe again, it was really limited to Lankinen, Dylan Ferguson from the KHL, Martin Jones, and then a few other guys that we discussed as well, too. So, limited options, the Canucks didn't really have anybody else to go to, and plus Lankinen was good enough as a backup last season to justify the signing in the first place. So at the end of the day, this is a pretty good deal, I'd say, for Vancouver. This is what Craig Button went out there and said about the signing. I think Kevin Lankinen is someone a little bit better than Casey DeSmith. Which is awesome, because when you consider the fact that Casey DeSmith was already pretty good with the Vancouver Canucks organization, he had a pretty decent run as the backup last year with a .896 save percentage and a .911 save percentage in the playoffs. But Casey DeSmith was also making $1.8 million a year with the Vancouver Canucks. His contract wasn't signed. He wasn't a free agent. He was traded over from Pittsburgh to Montreal in the Petrie-Karlsson trade, and then he was sent over to Vancouver in the Tanner Pearson trade. So the Canucks and their backup goaltending, they got a $1 million upgrade from $1.8 in DeSmith to $800K in Lankinen, and they arguably got a better guy instead. How great is that? Furthermore, there also is the trivia, which we cannot ignore too. This was on, what was it? Global News, Squire Barnes from the top rope with Canucks trivia. This was great. He went out there and spoke about Kevin Lankinen as a Vancouver Canucks signee, and also said that Lankinen is only the second Canucks goaltender to be Finnish, and the only other one was Mika Noranen, and he sucked. Literally, straight up, Squire Barnes says that he sucked in the video. And the top reply reads, he did suck. He had one job. Give Alex Auld the night off and he would get pulled and Auld would have to play. I believe Mika Noranen is the only Canucks goalie to ever get called for playing the puck outside the trapezoid. And, yeah, I mean, Noranen played for the Canucks for 8 games in 2005-2006. And to my knowledge, I guess, he is the only other Finnish goaltender to suit up for the Vancouver Canucks. Kevin Lankinen, you are literally making history. As long as he's better than Noranen, then I guess we have a winner here, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Firstly, about the Lankinen signing, how he had a really strong connection with Marco Torenius and how that may have been the big reason as to why he chose Vancouver in the first place. What are your thoughts on him as an upgrade over Casey DeSmith? What are your thoughts on the dollar amount, as well as Dylan Ferguson going over to the Dallas Stars farm team in the AHL? That's not really too relevant to the conversation, but I did want to throw it in there since we were on the topic of talking about goaltenders. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Canucks vs. Flames is on later tonight on whichever platform it's going to be on. We'll watch it. We'll make a video about it. For now, though, I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.